All right, thanks for joining us today, everyone. We're here with Betsy, Neely, Sikma of the Spartanburg Chamber and the Economic Futures Group. She's the Director of Small Business and Entrepreneurial Development. Sounds like the Spartanburg area has put everything on the line with you, and if you can't make it happen, it's all because of you. No, I'm just kidding.
No
But
pressure.
no pressure. I'm really interested in what you guys are doing. I think Economic Futures is a cool kind of group and title, if you will, because entrepreneurship and small business has become a buzzword. It's been some people think it's an industry now. It's something that's it's been America's lifeblood forever, but now it's something so much more powerful, and it's cool to see different cities and communities across the country and the world really start understanding that that's something that's important. Tell me a little bit about Spartanburg and your role that you play in that now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've really hit on something I was just saying the other day in a little blog post that I wrote that it's Spartanburg isn't just a city, it's a movement. And I think you could say that for entrepreneurism at large. I mean, there's tremendous momentum behind it, and I think that's fantastic. So I grew up in the city of Spartanburg. Graduated through the public school system here, and then left for about 17 years. Made my way through the the South, worked in Atlanta, Nashville, and then most recently in Chicago with a nonprofit small business lender and business development organization called Axion. Our headquarters was in Chicago, but I worked as a part of the Axion US network as well as Axion International. And Sort of in the last couple of years, I began to look at Spartanburg again because so much of the work that we were doing in Chicago, I viewed as incredibly transferable. Spartanburg's a place that I love. It's not a place that I necessarily ever thought I would end up living in again, but I began to pay attention to the things that were happening here on the ground, the way that some entrepreneurs were really able to pick up and scale, seemingly very adeptly. And about a year ago, began conversations here with the some local leadership, and then ultimately the chamber to come and try to create an ecosystem in which entrepreneurship can thrive here in Spartanburg.
I think every community in the world wants people to stay there, move there. It's a hard nut to crack. I think that there's, and I like the word that you use, transferable work to do that from place to place. I think that's something that we've seen in our community in Norfolk, Virginia, which is a city of 250,000 people, a region of 1.7 million people. So it seems like it's a lot bigger than it is. It's really not. And if you really think about something the size of 250,000, that's not very big. How big is Spartanburg?
So the city of Spartanburg isn't that large in and of itself, but the area that we serve serves about 300,000 people. So it's sizable. It's not a small area. And If you combine that with sort of the footprint that's covered between the Greenville area and Spartanburg. So you have the Greenville Spartanburg Airport that's technically in Spartanburg County, but is right in between the two. You're looking at a much, much larger critical mass of, really more than 1 million people. And so what we're trying to do is let folks know that we're here and that this exists and that there's tremendous potential for collaboration, for scale in the region at large. We're sort of right along the corridor that goes from Charlotte to Atlanta, as well as the corridor that goes from Asheville down to Charleston, South Carolina. We intersect there with those major interchanges. And so there's tremendous potential for, growth along those corridors, but also within the pockets that we see within the little downtown areas, downtown Spartanburg, et cetera. You asked about what's been going on here in the community, and I want to talk about an initiative that really sort of sparked my recruitment to Spartanburg, and I think kind of defines where I'm kicking off. So I am so green to this position. I'm brand spanking new. I think yesterday was exactly my month anniversary. So
Well,
um,
happy anniversary.
thanks. Yeah, thanks. So I've literally just gotten back here on the ground. But the thing that really pulled me back was an initiative that the Spartanburg Area Chamber has just recently kicked off at the beginning of 2017 called the One Spartanburg Initiative. I like to call it the One Spartanburg Movement because, as I said before, I think there's a lot of power behind that, a lot of potential for propulsion. Um, a task force came together and identified 8 areas for potential growth in the county and in the city. And these span from everything. I'll have to send you the list later, from downtown development to crime reduction to really booning up this great public education program that we have here. Any number of things. Item number 7, or story number 7, as we call it, is the unrealized potential for entrepreneurial development here in Spartanburg. So it's this amazing sort of patchwork quilt of or puzzle pieces of a grand vision for this place. And entrepreneurship is part of that. I think it's very forward thinking to make it a part of that. So in Spartanburg, we're interested in creating a place where people can thrive. And my predecessors, my generations before me, have gone a long way to making this happen. But in my view, a piece of that ability to thrive is the ability to generate prosperity and equitable access to prosperity for everybody who's here within our footprint. Of course, that means job creation, workforce development, all of these things. And explicit in that One Spartanburg plan are the goals of enhancing the talent pool, as well as producing more homegrown talent here in Spartanburg. Which I just love because it demonstrates how community revitalization really and truly happens from within. Part of that effort is making sure that the word is out on the street that Spartanburg is not just a place where people can thrive, it's a place where businesses can thrive. And in fact, it can act as a springboard for businesses. It's a place where you can land with your idea and we'll help you take it to scale. I'm sort of rambling on here, but I see my role. So this is all happening in Spartanburg. I see my role as a bit of a facilitator for that process. I have a little, or I have had, I haven't unpacked it yet, a little paperweight on my desk that is a Ralph Waldo Emerson quote. It says, "Every wall is a door." And I think when we think of entrepreneurs, in my mind, I think of them running headlong into those walls, just pounding through to make that door, right? I mean, unrelenting optimism, unrelenting grit. And this is true for small business owners outside of that sort of entrepreneurial movement as well. I see my job as throwing those doors open and letting people know that this is the place for them, and then backing up that promise with the tools that these folks need to be successful.
That quote is powerful. I like every wall is a door. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love what you just said about, like, this is a place where businesses can thrive. I'm going to tell you a quick story about our area, and that's something I think we've done poorly, and it'll give you an example, and maybe it'll help you as well. So 7 years ago, I recognized that I wanted to help the small business community here. And I didn't understand why small businesses weren't getting the momentum that I thought that they should be getting. It was about 3 or 4 years ago that I understood why. So there's a handful of Fortune 500s, like literally maybe a handful. And I believe 2 of them were purchased after about 15 years of however long they had been around, to other companies. And the story wasn't about how amazing you can go from taking your business that started here to being sold for billions of dollars. It was, look at everything that we lost.
Oh, yeah.
And while I get that, jobs are lost, I get that. But if you're trying to be a place where you can start, grow, and sell your business, which I think is what almost every business owner wants to do, that story needed to be sold in a different way. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was so so telling that if we can't even support these big businesses that have done so much for us forever, and by the way, are probably going to produce even more millionaires because the people, the shareholders that now are being purchased out, but there was something missing there, and so I get that there's definitely a negative side of it, but there's a huge upside to that where when you're trying to retain and attract talent and businesses, that's a place where these businesses are going to be sold for billions of dollars. That's a huge win. And so if we can't even get behind that from a big business perspective, what makes us think that these little businesses are going to get any kind of street cred or marketing behind it? And so I always thought that it was just very interesting that it was, 1,000 jobs are lost, not like, hey, for 15 years we allowed 1,000 jobs to be created. And so
and it has a domino effect, right? So I mean, the goal is that some of the people that came through that will go and launch their own enterprises themselves and will have the experience of being a part of that. I think I'm cutting you off here. I think you were on the verge of asking a question, but it strikes me that, I mean, that's the reason that this is one piece of the puzzle, right? I mean, this is an essential piece of the puzzle. It's an incredibly inspiring piece of the puzzle. It's a wealth generating piece of the puzzle. But here at the Economic Futures Group, entrepreneurship is one of the pieces that we're working on. And we also, brought the BMW plant here to Spartanburg County 20 years ago. And that's a huge job creation mechanism. It feeds a different part of the economy, and it sparks growth in a different, much, much slower and potentially more stable way. That's why these things have to go hand in hand, right?
Absolutely, and I think people have to look at it as a portfolio, right? You're not going to put all your bets on black at the roulette table. You're going to have a series of bets, and so whether it's recruiting the BMWs or trying to help propel small businesses in your area, you need all of those things. And so I think we have something that we've occasionally called no whale hunting, which is the recruitment of something like a BMW. And people take that and are misguided when we're like, no, it's a portfolio of all these things. If all you do is go after whales and you don't actually try and grow up the businesses in your community, that's a bad bet. Mm-hmm. And so there's all of these things that you have to put together to do that. I'm interested in how you sell the domino effect, because I think that's something that a lot of people would probably be terrified of and saying, no, we have to control this. Like, this is something that's not good. But ultimately, it's a great effect because that domino actually starts itself back up, I would think. So how do you sell that?
Yeah, actually, as we're talking about it right here, I think maybe we should come up for a different way of talking about it than domino effect, because we're not trying to knock things down, right? We're trying to propel things forward. So maybe it's the ripple effect. Maybe there's
it's a full cycle, right? You start, you grow, you fail, whatever, and then you get sold, and then it circles around over and over again.
Right. So I think so many times in my career, not just here, but definitely here. And in fact, this just came up in conversation yesterday. I think you have to strike a balance between having a huge vision, right, and also a super narrow focus on immediate, tangible goals. This is true in, organizational leadership. Anytime you're trying to lead a team, you have to hold that strategic line, but tick away, at the daily tasks that get you to your mission, get you to your goal. This is true in business development. And I just said this to you earlier when we were talking about my own side hustle. I have a little photography business on the side, and I like to think of it as somehow holding in parallel the broadest vision, the biggest thinking possible, and the narrowest viewpoint all at once. So to knock away at the success, and in my title, there's entrepreneurial and small business development. So sustaining those small businesses that are truly the backbone of our economy, truly, as you say earlier, the lifeblood of this work. But also to build a safe space for people to truly have creative, fearless, innovative thoughts and ideas and go out there and get it. Yeah, it's scary, but as long as there's a firm foundation and as long as you're not putting all your bets, I don't have the lingo, you'll have to give that analogy back to me, but as long as you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, there's nothing to be afraid of.
And
I think, yeah,
I think that's the key, right? Is understanding that you wouldn't buy one stock and think that that's going to do everything forever.
right,
And
right.
you need to have a solid portfolio. You're giving me so much good stuff. I have to take notes to make sure I don't miss anything. So I love that huge vision, but immediate, tangible goals. I think we often miss that a lot, and I think that's why business plans can be a challenge with people because they're like, oh, I'm going to make $1 million this year, and it's like, guys, like you have to figure out how to backtrack and figure out what's going to work on that piece to actually do that. And there's only so many hours in a day. There's only so many hours in a day that you can actually get work done. And so in your photography business, let's say you want to get 10 clients. Well, that means you probably have to talk to more than 10 people to get those clients. And so where do you figure out where they are? How do you, what do you spend money on with them? And I love that you have experience in owning a business and actually are in this role, because I think all too often, cities and spaces across the country hire someone who means well but cannot connect with those people, and then it goes under in just a few short years because people didn't want to be around that person because they couldn't actually help them in the way. And I love that you're doing that. I would love to know your definition of a small business. I think it's more like the lifeblood, the Main Street America businesses, and entrepreneurs to you are the innovative ones.
So,
Are they the same? Like, can they be the same? And because I think a lot of people think that a small business owner and entrepreneur are different. So how do you guys kind of define them?
I don't necessarily think they're different. I think there are a lot of small business owners who are entrepreneurs. So I think there's certainly overlap. I mean, we could go to the SBA and get some definitions. I've done that a lot in the past, but I, I guess loosely the way that I see it, at least today in this iteration, is that the small businesses are that steady backbone of the economy. And then there are some small business owners or some people who haven't ever had a small business at all who want to sort of solve a piece of the want to be a problem solver in this space, want to innovate, want to create something new, um, want to start something, and that's kind of the way that I would define an entrepreneur. So it's interesting that there's crossover for me in my job, and I love that. I love working with. I just had a woman come in the other day to talk to me about her business plan for a food truck that she wanted to start, and that's fantastic. I love doing that. But the distinction I would make is the potential for scale with the entrepreneurial work that I'm trying to do, and in a lot of ways, I think the small business owners and those in the entrepreneurial field can really support each other, can really be a boon for each other, can help each other out. But there are also just different resources that each one of those groups needs. And so I think it's important to make a distinction so that we're speaking the right language as we speak with folks who come forward.
I think that's fair. I think that's a good way to define that.
Yeah, so I said, and I said this the other day, I'm not sure this is quite right, but I said that the small business owners are sort of the backbone. I sort of see the entrepreneurial world as the vision. So it's sort of the way that the head connects to the spine. That's really imperfect. Don't use that. Don't write that one down.
No, I'm working on it. So I often find it interesting that chambers, cities, economic developments, job creation, attraction, retention is so important. It should be. As technology improves and makes it easier for a company to not have as many jobs, how are you guys using that as statement number 7, which is the unrealized potential for entrepreneurial development in Spartanburg? How are you thinking in 2018, 2020, knowing that less people will work at companies because technology has improved?
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge question, right? I get excited talking about it because I, again, think that this is an incredible challenge that hopefully with all of our powers combined we'll be able to solve. But I think we're misleading ourselves to say that there are going to be less jobs or that there's going to be less need. I think we just have to develop the workforce in a different way. I mean, look at Spartanburg. So Spartanburg was a textile sort of empire here in the South for ages and ages, and it's really made up in a lot of ways by these little mill communities that are no more, that have come together into this metropolitan area. The textile industry has changed, and many people talk about the way that it's failed here, because of technology, because of you know just the way that the world has changed. But textiles textile creation is the art of making threads, right? And if you think about composites, if you think about coatings, if you think about um, even the work that's being done, say at the BMW plant. I mean, this is textiles. It's technical textiles, but it's textiles. And so it's not that the industry is failing or going away. It's just that it's evolving, and we need to be savvy enough to evolve with it. I'm not answering your question, but I'm getting to it. So I was just in a conversation the other day with someone about how to help create an adept workforce here in Spartanburg that can meet the needs of entrepreneurs in the tech world who might want to land here, who might want to do something big, but just don't have the coding or development support in this space right now to kind of make that happen, right? And we have an incredible network of colleges and universities here in the area, how to get their programs really up to speed so that we are sending young people out with serious skills in this world. And off the cuff, he said to me, cybersecurity is going to be one of the major obstacles that this country faces. It's already becoming that. What if we did a workforce development program training people in cybersecurity? So I say this to say that I think some jobs will go away. I think that's right. I think that there are probably a lot of people in communities that are going to suffer because of that if we're not careful, in the same way that the mill communities of Spartanburg suffered when the textile industry sort of began to fail or change. What we have to do is be creative. We have to get in there and look and see the future a little bit, see where the trends are heading, and get folks trained so that they're ready to dive in and not only take those jobs, but to do them really well.
I think that's 100% true. And I think, if you think about the meaning of 1004, it's really saying it's 1,000 businesses with an average of 4 employees each, right? It's instead of recruiting 4 BMWs that have 1,000 employees each, those 1,000 people there, I mean, that's 1,000 entrepreneurs compared to a couple. And so you're solving real problems. You get deeper into it, and so it's getting creative. It is trying to problem solve, and I think that the more that people can recognize and adapt to that mindset, they will not have to worry as much because they were on the forefront of that. And I think there's definitely thousands. I mean, every one of your community is smart in their own way, right? And understanding what that is to what you guys can be really good at is so important. You mentioned
you have ownership of that too. I mean, that's another piece of it, right? I mean, if it comes from within, there's incredible ownership to that, and there's nothing that can substitute for feeling like you own the solution to a problem.
Oh, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. You talked about potential cybersecurity being something that you guys do on a workforce development. What is Spartanburg good at, though? Like, do you guys have ties to make that something that's good? I think oftentimes people, they don't even take an inventory of what they're really good at and try and innovate off of that. They instead say, and I don't know that cybersecurity is a thing, but they try and say, hey, we're going to do this thing that we're not good at and we have no ties to, instead of saying, what are we great at, and let's make sure that we're still the best damn in the world at that and innovate off of that.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I don't know that cybersecurity is it either. I just I loved witnessing that sort of revelation with this person that, hey, there's a need here. I wonder if we could get at it. I mean, I'm still taking inventory, I think, of what Spartanburg is really good at. I'm not saying this just to get on my, family and boss's good side, but what I'm learning is that Spartanburg's actually good at a whole lot of things. Again, there's tons of education here, colleges and universities. There's this deep rooted knowledge of the textile industry. Spartanburg is not unlike Chicago, which is where I just moved from. A city with big shoulders. It's a county with big shoulders. There's a lot of grit here, a lot of determination. And so I think it remains to be seen who we will be and what we'll do, but I have no doubt we're going to knock your socks off. So
Nope.
just stay tuned.
Watch out. One thing that I think a lot of
In a good
I,
way.
I expect it to be a good way. One thing that a lot of communities do poorly is they have great vision. They want something to happen, but they do terrible at communication and marketing towards those people. I think that that's something that you're new to here because you're only 30 days in or so. What are some of the ways that you're going to make sure that people know that Spartanburg is not only a place to live, but to grow and thrive as a business or a business owner?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's multi-layered. I'm really lucky and fortunate that here in this building, there's a really stellar communications team, sort of not exactly at my disposal, but at least on my team. Um, and I think there are different ways to do this, but really at the crux of it, um, we just have to speak the story, right? We have to be vocal about who we are. We have to actively um, invite people to come into the fold, um, demonstrate the things that are going on here, not only in the business world, but in the community. And just let our enthusiasm be viral. Of course, there are tactical pieces to that in terms of how to approach the marketing aspect, but really at the heart of it, it's just telling the story and telling it well.
You have me excited. That's
Come see. I'll
I
give
love
you
it.
the tour. I'll give you the Betsy Sikma tour.
The Betsy Sikma tour. I love that. We're talking to Betsy Sikma at the Spartanburg Chamber. You can learn more about them at spartanburgchamber.com. Telling the Spartanburg story is so important. Like, what ultimately brought you from Chicago back home?
This is a really long story. You're gonna wish you hadn't asked it.
All right, the 2 minute version of what brought you home.
Okay, I'll give it to you. So, about 2 years ago, my husband and I had just had our second child, and we came home on a really quick, probably poorly planned weekend jaunt down to Spartanburg to introduce our daughter Rowan to our family. And I was sitting in my parents' family room with my brother, who is here locally and is doing amazing things. And I was just kind of telling him what I was doing in Chicago at Axion, the coaching and access to capital. And we were just launching uh, an incubator that actually there was a big announcement about it just this week. I'm so proud of them. But so I was telling him, with great excitement about all this work that was happening in Chicago, and he said, "Hey, Betsy, you should come and do that here." And I thought, yeah, there's no way. There's the support system isn't here. He said, "Come meet me at the downtown coffee shop, the Little River Coffee Bar, tomorrow morning. I want to introduce you to a couple of people." And I walked into this coffee shop that is literally the magic coffee shop. It's the room where it happens. Um, and it has been that for me ever since. I walked in, and there were city leaders, county leaders, entrepreneurs, investors, small business owners, ministers, nonprofit leaders. I mean, you name it. The cross section of leadership here in Spartanburg, sitting at that table, ready to talk to me about what we could do here for this community. And it took a long time for me to end up here. But there's just something absolutely, you know, igniting in a moment like that where you realize this place is ready. This place is ready to do what it takes to make this work happen. The leadership is literally here at the table. Um, and Chicago, there's a lot of work that can be done there. I got priceless, invaluable experience working there. But these things can happen with a lot more buy-in, a lot more excitement, and much quicker in a place where there's that accessibility to the leadership, and 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 not only accessibility but buy-in from the leadership, and that was a game-changing day for me. Yeah. Right. Oh man. Well, the one thing I want to make sure that I say, um, I think I tried to say it earlier, but I want to make sure that this is clear. Spartanburg is already a great place to be. Um, I wouldn't be here if it weren't. It would have taken a whole lot more to bring me back. Spartanburg is already a great place to be, but I think we're standing at the precipice of a big leap forward. Um, Not only in terms of, you know, the generation of prosperity and entrepreneurship and downtown development and all that, but of really moving forward as one, as a community that's united in its quest for positive transformation, equity, and thought leadership. So this is vague. Who knows where we'll end up? You never know exactly where you're going to land when you take that leap. But I think the key is that we're doing it together. Um, and we're yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you, Zach. And I'm serious. Come down. We'll show you what's going on.